I really appreciate you all coming. I have a lot of interest with this topic, so thank you all so much. What we're going to do is just to let you know, if we do unmute, you can be unmuted. Those that are in the WebEx, we will be able to hear your questions in the classroom, and you will also be able to hear if somebody does have a question in this classroom. I would love to introduce you to Donielle Miller. She is awesome, event planner extraordinaire. Um, she is now at System Office as the Executive Director. So without further ado, I will let her introduce herself and what she does and what makes her an expert in event planning. So thank you all and enjoy.
Thank you so much, Gracia. So a little bit about me and what makes me an expert in event planning is that for the past, I won't give my age, but for the past 30 years, I have worked on the weekends for free for my mom. And my mom is an event planner. She has been planning events and weddings my entire life. So that's kind of where the event planning bug for me came from, why I do enjoy it. And so my first solo mission was planning my high school prom. And so after that, I was like, oh yeah, I could do this. At first, event planning is very daunting when you're just like the person tagging along and unloading the truck. But that is where my passion for it came from. But it always ends up fitting in my different jobs and different scopes. So just a little bit about me. So as Gracia said, I'm currently an executive director at our system office here. And I know we've also invited Heapsters as well, so I don't know where everybody is coming from. So here in the Houston, Texas area. So I work in the Division of Strategic Engagement and Communications, and I still do event planning as well. I do some other things, strategic planning, communications development, working with some of our external partners. So those are all fun things, but I also get to do some really cool events as well. Prior to that, I worked at the Lone Star College-Tomball for a long time. And I was actually the director of marketing and events. So really loved and enjoyed that role. Made some really great connections here. Wonderful faces in the room. So I'm super, super excited to be here. Super excited to be back home. I always tell my folks at UP whenever I have to come to Tomball, I'm like, oh, I'm going home. They're like, what? Early? No, I'm going to Tomball. So I'm super excited to be here. I have always worked in higher education, so you're going to get that lens from me. I will talk a little bit about creating experiences and students as well as working with community partners. So I've always worked in higher education. Luckily, because I have a free job on the weekend. My mom is great though. She's great. So I get paid in other ways. So I do not mind working for her for free. So I do have some experience, and if we do have any folks who do come from a corporate or business lens, I do have some experience there a little bit. But my scope and my framework is higher education. So we're going to talk a lot about experiences, which I know my Tomball peeps will understand and will appreciate. So our agenda for today is going to be these couple of things, and I promise that it's not slide heavy. It's not a lot of text on the slide, so we're just going to have a conversation. So feel free to interrupt me if you want to, if you have an immediate question, or even if you want to wait till the end. There is a section for Q&A, but feel free to interrupt. I think Gracia is checking the chat, and so we'll just be having a conversation, and we'll kind of talk about my philosophy and how I think things should go. That's just me. Not saying it's the right way, but how I go about doing things. So I like to start when I do talk about event planning. So since I'm at Tomball, I will talk about my favorite event ever that I ever planned at Tomball. So a while ago, I somehow ended up helping run a grant. I know how, but I ended up running a grant for a little bit longer than I thought I was going to be doing it. But one of the things that we were trying to do was to cultivate relationships with our community partners. Wanted to get them to continue to support the college, but also to support us in scholarship dollars, right? We wanted to, we had a matching fund from the Department of Education where they will match us up to so many $100,000 if we raise this money in scholarship funds. And so we had an event, not to ask for money, but just to kind of introduce the topic and then also celebrate our community partners. And that event was called Stars of Tomball. My favorite event, hands down. It was such a great time. And we got to really just showcase all the great things about Tomball. We got to honor some really, really great partners in the Tomball community who I am still connected to. I'm just up the street in the Vintage Park area, but still connected to. And it was a really great time. But I'll reference that event a lot throughout this session so we can kind of talk through the philosophy, right? So we'll talk about the importance of effective event planning, my philosophy of event planning, planning small scale events as well as large scale events, and then of course the big thing, event day execution, and the importance of post-event activities. So we'll go ahead and jump in. So my philosophy, sorry if you can't see that, but I'll talk it out. I was using the colors that Gracia outlined for the summary to read. So guest experience. That is so important. Whenever I am planning a large scale event or even a small scale event, even a meeting, even just a small lecture, I want the guests to be able to find where they're going. I want them to I want to eliminate barriers from them. I want there to be adequate signage. I want them to know where they're going. I want them to be able to be greeted by somebody who is associated with the event. And I want to make sure that we're developing an experience that leaves them with a great feel about the institution, right? And so when I talk about Stars of Tomball, lots of signage, right? So Tomball has two entrances, and so it can get kind of confusing, especially if people have been familiar with the campus before when we only had one entrance and we didn't have a winding entrance. That was not a thing. So we want to make sure that people have signs that they know where to park. So that's the first entrance. That's guest experience, is making sure that people know where to go. And so one of the things that we implement, and I know that a lot of the teams here at Tomball's campus, is event today signs and parking signs that show people where to park, especially when we have external partners. And even when we're inviting students for open house, or we're inviting students to different events, or if we're having any other large scale events, we want to show people who might not be familiar with the campus how to get to where they're going. I had a meeting one time for all of the marketing and communications folks in the system here at Tomball. And I knew many of them that had not ever been here. So we did poster signs at all the entrances, right? To say with the main parking lots. Of course, we sent out lots of emails with maps. People still end up parking in weird places. But even when you give them instruction, people still end up doing their own thing, right? And so the main entrances, we had signs that kind of said, okay, you're here, now go here to be able to get to this room. Because I knew people weren't familiar. And so if we know that we're planning events, we need to make sure that we're thinking about the guest experience. Another big piece for me is timeliness. I start on time. And I get that from my mom. My mom used to say, well, she still says, I only need, because she does mostly weddings, she'll say, I only need the bride, the groom, and the minister. You used to have a witness. You don't have to have a witness anymore. That's all I need. And she'll tell families that too at the rehearsal dinner. So we'll start without you. And I get that from her because she has, if of course a bride and groom has to be okay, but she has definitely started without someone, aunt, uncle who's they're 10 minutes away, can't wait on them. And so I get that from my mom. So timeliness for me is very, very important. But it's also a respect thing that goes back to guest experience. We don't want guests just sitting around, waiting for forever for something to start. And I get that things happen, right? And we'll kind of talk about navigating challenges that happen on event days. But things happen. But we want to make sure that we are timely. So that is important to me. And then organization. So after we kind of go through some of these things, I'm going to share with you some tools that I use to kind of keep organized. You'll be able to scan a QR code, or I can just give you the link and you'll be able to download them as well as the presentation from today. So organization is very key. And that starts with knowing our purpose and scope, which we'll go through, and then also staying within our budget. That's a big piece of being organized. I know that that's harder now these days because things have just, oh my gosh, things cost so much. And we're limited in resources and we want to make things nice, but we can be creative in some ways. And so if we start early enough, we can be organized and we can outline and make good plans to ensure that we have a great guest experience. Also, when you're doing events for the folks that you serve, so maybe this is attached to your job, whether it's higher education or not, the people who you are serving, they're your guests, even if they are your colleagues, right? So even if it's an event, so even if it's, we used to have these back in the day, there used to be a division here at Tomball called the Office of Strategic Initiatives. And we used to do an OSI breakfast every welcome week. And I don't know why, but that event, all these great minds, all these great degrees in the room, it would just always be like a little bit of a struggle for us to like remember the day that it was supposed to happen, remember who was responsible for what. And so, but one of the things that we wanted to do was just make it very welcoming for everyone on the campus. So even though it's our colleagues, they're our guests, and we want to make sure that we have enough. And some snafus that, we've had in the past, I'll think about when we always don't think is there used to be a pre-COVID, there was a restaurant in Tomball called The Patch. And they used to do a lot of catering here at the Tomball campus. And it closed down after the pandemic. But The Patch did this elaborate breakfast, and it was a good price, okay, too. But it was an elaborate breakfast. But one year, somebody said, and we had just been doing it the same way so many years, but somebody said, there's never any non-pork meat option. And it had just never crossed our minds about how much pork The Patch loaded up on that breakfast buffet package. And it was because it was a good price. They were always timely, and they always gave us way more than we ordered, right? And so being able to think about your guests, and we're not registering for that event, we're just offering it to the college, so we don't have the opportunity to grab, dietary restrictions, but not being cognizant of thinking that there are people who this is not something that they can eat, and it doesn't align with their diet. We always can think about our colleagues too as our guests as well. All right, so planning small scale events, and these are going to be interchangeable we want to identify our purpose and goal. So what is the goal of this event? What is the goal of this meeting? What's the purpose of it? Who's going to be there? We want to know all of that information because that's going to inform what kind of event we're going to present. It might also inform how much we get for our budget. We want to ensure that we are constantly thinking about our budget. I know that it is harder these days, especially with food costs and different things like that. It's just so much more expensive than it was pre-pandemic. And I know we're kind of like, oh, we're post-pandemic a lot, but it seems like the prices are still rising so much. And when you talk to vendors, they'll say, I just can't do the same thing that I could back then for the past amount of money. And I get that. I understand. We don't want people to go broke just because they want our business or they want to, stay in contact with the college. So we really want to outline budget. We want to give line items to each of our budgets. So food, if we need linen, if we have speakers, if we have to do any other setups, if we have to give honorariums, like that type of thing, we want to outline all of our budget. And then venue selection. So as a person, and this is my and this could be in any industry, but I'll talk to the Lone Star folks for a second. As a person who used to oversee event spaces at a college, please, if you can, you should always book your spaces as far in advance as you can. It just makes the world so much easier when we can get your event information, when we know your setup. A lot of times, and it's different at each institution, right? It's super different. And so there are some where facilities and setup is embedded into their process. And then there are some that, facilities is separate. And so we've got to partner with those outside departments to get things set up. So we need your help. And I don't even run facilities, or even run event spaces anymore. But just for the people who do, Jill's in the room, we need your help for you to tell us well in advance. And I know even for meetings, because sometimes people think, well, I just need for you to unlock a room. It is not that simple. It's not just unlocking a room. It's also putting in an OTS ticket in the right amount of time. And you might need something specific where you're doing this hybrid event setup, and they got to make sure they send the right people who have the right training, who know how to work that specific equipment, know how to turn on the mic correctly. We really, really need your help in letting us know when and where you would like to have your event. And I know sometimes people are like, well, I just need to have something small. That small one event has like 7 dominoes for the folks on the other side. And so we really need your support and your help. And I'm not even in the we anymore, but I just lived that life for a very long time. And I still have flashbacks about it. So venue selection, help us so we can help you. Like I said, I'm not even in the we anymore. All right, so guest list management. Oh, I'm missing a T. I now am in the mode of registering for everything. Especially if it's internal, because we need, if there's going to be food, we need to know dietary restrictions. We need to know if you have any accessibility requirements, because those are things that we cannot just plan for on the day of. We've got to put in requests for those types of things. So I am big on registering for everything if you can. Meetings, things like that, are reaching out, even if you're organizing a small meeting for somebody that you support, just reaching out to those 5 people who are on the meeting invite and asking them if they have any accommodations that need to be addressed. So creating a timeline and a plan of action, we're going to go through my plan of action document. It's blank, so it's not as intense. I should have showed you one that's filled out. I don't want to overwhelm it. So we'll go over that a little bit later. And then logistics and setup. We need to know who is going to help you. We need to know who is going to be in the room. We need to know, you as an event planner need to know where your support is coming from, right? If you're having an event and you know that you need X, Y, and Z, and it has to come from these three different departments, who's walking around with the cart to gather all the materials that you need? Who's doing that? Who's doing the setup? Who is it? One person? Hopefully not. Is who's putting out all the tablecloths? Who's making sure that name cards are in front of seats? Who's making sure that, if you have little giveaway bags, who's making sure that all of that is placed out? We've got to have a team. So we want to think about logistics and setup in everything that we do, as well as promotions and invitations. And you'll see some of this in my POA little document that I use. And we've gotten a little fancy now in my new job. We use some software now to help us, but promotion and invitations and marketing, we want to make sure that everything that people get invited in a timely manner, right? Especially if we're working with external partners, or if we are, working with people in different ISDs, or we're working with students, or we're looking at prospective students. We want to make sure that the promotion and the invitations go out in the right amount of time. All right, so large scale event. Same thing, identifying purpose and goals. With large scale events, not just detailed budgeting, but really, where is all the money coming from? A lot of times with our large scale events at larger systems and larger organizations, multiple people might be putting into the pot. And so we need to figure out and confirm in writing that Department A said they would give us $500, but when you reach out to Department A budget manager, they've never heard of that, and they don't have $500 to give. So we need to talk about like who's funding, or if this coming out of an auxiliary fund, where is the money coming from? I harped on venue coordination for a long time, so I won't talk about that, but vendor coordination. So when we were planning Stars of Tomball, going back to my favorite event that I planned here at Tomball, we had several different vendors. And one of the things that we did, because it was such a large event, we worked with our vendors to see if there was a possibility that some of them could come in the day before, because we had so much going on. It was a big production. We wanted to ensure that we're set up on time, timeliness, that everything would be visible for the guests when they got there, that we weren't going to be running, trying to do things at the last minute. So we want to make sure that we are building good relationships with our vendors and creating timelines and creating strategies so that we can get things done, so we can have moments of breathing, right? Because event days and event setups can be very stressful, and we want to give ourselves some time where we can just relax right before. We don't want to be completely stressed. And then a comprehensive guest list and registration. So with events like that, we actually have to do seating, right? We got to do seating charts. So we got to place people. We got to know who needs to sit with who. We know, okay, we have the mayor, the police chief, the fire chief, okay, but we also have these really big pillars in the community coming. That's not enough seats. Everybody can't sit with the president. So what do we do? Do we place people strategically with other, faculty members that they may be interested in? Maybe they're really interested in the art. So we want to, connect them, and make sure that we're seating them with folks who they'll be interested in. So comprehensive guest list and registration. And as you start planning more and more events, especially if you're supporting, a vice president, or I know some people online are supporting, you know, ABCs, senior ABCs, BCs, all the Cs. Um, we want, you'll know, their preferences as well. And so you want to be able to start building relationships with those who are frequenting your events, right? So you know them, kind of what their expectations are, what they're expecting when they come, the types of people that they would enjoy being around. And so we want to do like a comprehensive guest list and registration. And that takes time. So we got to plan early. We got to get our invites out early. In working on large scale events, I've learned that with a lot of folks that we consider our VIPs at the college, we have to call. They're not gonna fill out our form that will collect the RSVPs, right? So, and that's just a courtesy that we offer because we're trying to maintain relationships. A lot of ISD partners that you might be working with, let's say you're doing a counselor breakfast or something like that, if you're hitting them at a time of year where they're not really focused, in front of the computer or having to do more face-to-face interactions with the students that they serve, then a call might be better than just expecting them to respond to your email invitation, right? And they might do it when you call. They'll be like, oh, I saw that. Let me click in there real quick and submit it. But having a phone call still goes a long way. I know sometimes that's a lot, especially that's a lot of manpower, even if you're working in a small team. But if you really need people to be there, that personal touch goes a long way. So I do encourage folks to call. Not call everybody, but call, your VIP. And so I'm going to skip the 3 because we'll go through a little bit of this when I get to the POA document. But risk management and contingency planning. So in a past life, I used to do risk management for events at University of Houston. So it was my job to look at people's event plans and put them into this matrix that I made and then assess the risk, give people reports on this is the risk that you have, and then help them come up with ways to mitigate their risk. And I did it for student organizations and professional departments, right? And so we don't always think about risk management at our institutions. We don't always think about it, but it is really important to consider because we always want to mitigate the risk for the college or for whatever institution we're representing or whatever company we're representing. So what do I mean about when we're mitigating risk? One of the things that Lone Star does really well is, well, not everybody, because I know people don't always go by the list, but when we used to have a catering list, right? Those folks had Lone Star listed on their insurance policy. So if somebody got sick, the risk lied with that vendor rather than somebody saying, I went to an event at Lone Star and I got sick, right? I know that it's just easier these days to just, go with whoever the cheapest which I understand. But that was some of the reasoning behind having a list curated of people who were approved catering vendors because they had already agreed and provided insurance documentation that showed that that they, named Lone Star as one of the holders, or one of the institutions that were connected to their insurance policy. So that mitigated the risk. If you think about, like having an event in spaces where there might be construction, might not be a good idea, but that might be your only event space, right? So what things can we do to mitigate risk? More signage, things printed in yellow, all those different things. We can think about that. where we're having it. Is it a place that people could slip easily? We don't always think about those things, but especially when we're dealing with external folks, it's really good to think about ways that we can mitigate any risk that might be on the college. And so one of the ways that I used to think about that as well is just going through and like testing floors right before event. And you never know, because somebody might have spilled something and it might not have been spilled when you went out there 30 minutes ago, but now it is there and somebody slips and falls. So just being cognizant of those things and making sure that you know the appropriate people to be able to get help to separate to separate those types of risks from your event, because we don't want people getting injured. We want people to have a great experience. We want a great guest experience. All right, so event day execution. We want to do our final check. I like to be done with everything. And this is not, I'm not saying that this is always how it is with me. This is not always how it is. Because sometimes I can't get in until 3 hours before, right? So I want to do all my final checks and set up at least, preferably 2 hours, but at least an hour before. I want to coordinate with all the teams that are a part of the execution of the event. So if I've got OTS, then I want to coordinate with them. If I know that, for some reason halfway, let's say it's a full day, what did that used to be called? Faculty Fridays. Let's say it's a full day and the trash needs to be taken out after breakfast. I want to coordinate with facilities because we need empty trash cans for the lunch portion. So I want to coordinate with all the teams and make sure that people know what my expectations are. I'm going to be looking at and managing the event flow and handling unexpected issues. This is one thing that I had to like really ingrain in myself because especially on the event day, I'm always looking for imaginary perfection. And something will always not go to plan. Something will always not go to plan. Now I'm looking for the thing that's not going to plan. And I'm just like, okay, let me find it so I can accept it and move on. And I know that that can be hard because especially when you spend a lot of time outlining and really delving into how you're going to execute something and things not actually happening the way you see it, or the caterer did not get your order correctly. So I will tell you this. So in my current job, well, it's about to change again, but not like leaving Lone Star or anything, but we're just shifting again. So in my current job, so we had it was a small meeting, small scale event, and so let one of the team members, handle the catering, and the the other co-organizers had asked for lasagna and chicken parmesan. They got chicken lasagna, which was which was lasagna with like chicken broth with like some chicken and like I don't even think it had really a filling. I don't think the caterer really understood or knew, but so there's three different there's three different passes of information, right? So the event like Coley's where like we want lasagna and chicken parmesan, they shared it with this person. This person contacted a caterer. The caterer then interpreted, I don't know if this is a Pinterest recipe or where this came from, but it was just not good. Also, they asked for drinks and the caterer brought like I don't in case somebody sells these but like they brought like little pitchers of water, but they were mixing like packets in there. And I was like, what is happening? But it was like, like sugar-free energy drink, like from like one of those companies that you can like be like a rep for, you know what I mean? And so the caterer was a rep and was trying to like talk to people about it. So it just all fell apart at one time, right? So what do? One, you can't sell your energy pack here. So we're gonna get some other drinks. Um, and we'll just have to keep it moving with the chicken noodle soup, chicken lasagna, right? Because it was like chicken noodle soup because it had like carrot and some celery in it, but it was lasagna. It was quite an experience, but right, that's an unexpected issue. Luckily, it was a small event, not too many people, but and somebody said they enjoyed it, but not a lot. So you have unexpected issues, right? And so at that moment, what can we fix now? Probably the drink situation. That's a easy lift. We can fix that. If the Kroger is right by the Woodlands, so you can just run to that Kroger from our Woodland system office, and so that we can do. Can't do anything about chicken noodle soup lasagna, but we can keep going, move forward, um, and have the event. And so you handle the unexpected issues the way that you can, hopefully ensuring that guests are still satisfied and that they're having a good experience. Because to be honest, they don't know, unless some of them are here now, that we didn't want chicken noodle soup lasagna. They probably thought, oh, look, this is something different that they're doing. I wonder, who picked this. They didn't know that that wasn't what we ordered, but we were able to handle it and move on. So, yeah, it's never going to be exactly, there's always going to be something, but you take that, you move on, and you keep going so you can have a great event. All right. So post-event activities, this is really important. I don't think we do this enough. I would say at Tomball we do. We have a lot of times we would have debriefing meetings. So we would have a post meeting after the event. So we would debrief, get feedback, understand what went right. We'll look at the goals that we initially set, and then we'll evaluate our success, making sure we do thank you notes to those, even if it is just an email, especially if it's external folks or partnerships that you're trying to build, that you're trying to cultivate and keep. Send them a quick thank you note, thanking them for coming. We want to continue to creating relationships is all about cultivating and creating an experience that people can have with you. And then reporting and documentation. So making sure you're following back up. You're going back, looking at your budget, preparing, reconciling it. We said we were going to spend this much. This is how we spent. Did we go? Were we under? Great. Were we over? Okay. Where did we go over? So we know to make adjustments. And then we can also make business case in the future, if you need to ask for more resources or find more partners. And then lessons learned for future events. So things that I learned. So going back to Stars of Tomball. So one of the pieces of Stars of Tomball that we did is I think people may remember him. A few people may remember him. But me and Michael Mayfield rode around to every person that we were honoring as Stars of Tomball to their job. And we had this big sign that said, I'm a star at Tomball. And we took a picture of them, like giving them the sign. It was a part of the thing. We were trying to build up hype about it. So people would come because this had never happened. Nobody knew what we were doing. So we wanted to like build up hype. And so one of the things that we did not consider was we were reaching out to folks directly when what we should have been doing was contacting their admin, the folks who control the calendar, because people will say, "Oh yeah, I'll be around at this time." Nobody. And the admin would be like, I could have told you they weren't going to be here. Like, he has this, in downtown Houston at this time. So now we know that we really need to be talking with the folks who have the power, the gatekeepers, those who have the calendar, because a lot of those folks that we were trying to honor, which we ended up getting to everybody, but we missed some steps and got a little bit delayed because we were reaching out directly to the honorees rather than working with some of the folks who are in their offices who have a bigger handle on their calendars. But it all worked out for the good. It all worked out for the good. All right. Also, I will say, um, we had this idea. We were like, let's just get we had extra money back then. And we were like, let's just get a cake, right? Like almost like a wedding cake. And we were like, this is gonna be so cool. People are gonna come, they're gonna come take pictures with the cake. People are gonna eat the cake. It's gonna be great. Worst idea ever. One, didn't think about luckily the caterer came through, but who's cutting the cake, right? And should have known that, waiting all the time, who's cutting the cake? And then also, how are people gonna get the cake? Is it served? Like, how is that gonna happen? We had so much left over. I thought the cake wasn't really that good, but it was a really good. It was it was just something in the spur of the moment because we were trying to make it this grand affair, and it was pretty. But you think about like your lessons learned. So if you ever came to a college relations event post that, you always had a cupcake. Same, found somebody who can make really good cupcakes. People started loving the cupcake. You only ever got cupcakes with us. Why? Because we got burned with the fake wedding cake. All right. Let's go. Okay. So you can scan this or go to the web page. It's a link tree.
Danielle, there's a really good comment in the chat,
Okay.
and it's from Gina, and she said, "I'm discovering that a lot of these concepts can apply to teaching, not just planning events. How about those who teach? Any idea on some concepts, how they can be used and applied to your classroom?" So an example, one of the very first slides mentioned helping visitors where we go. So I thought perhaps I can place a sign on my classroom door, including class name, number, my name, and some pictures related to the class. Can't tell you how many times I've had students attempt to enter my class at Creekside, but it was the wrong class.
Yeah, no, signage is really, really important, and it's important in thinking about that because we want to create great experiences for our students, right? We want to eliminate barriers for them. We want them to, feel welcome, and we want to do all the things that we can do. Um, we want to do all the things that we can do to ensure that they, make it to us first, right? Because that's the first hurdle. They could be nervous, they could be scared, especially if it's their first time in college or this is their first day. That's one of the reasons why we started Timberwolf takeoff. But what if I start in 8 week one? I don't get to see a Timberwolf takeoff. There's nobody sitting in the hallway, offering me directions on the first day, right? So signage, making sure, communicating with folks about how to get to places, and then creating an experience as well, thinking about the student experiences. I always think about my events about like what I would like to see if and even aesthetically wise, if I was a guest. And so that helps inform me about the decisions that I make about events. Um, so yeah, no, those are great points. So I'm gonna go to all right, so I created a little link tree to put all of the resources for today. The main thing that we're going to go through really quickly, we'll go through the event PLA, but My team and I, in my department, we are now using Monday.com for event management as well as using it as a project management tool, and it is fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. There are free versions. We use a paid version, but there are free versions, and it takes a while to really get the hang of it because there's so many different workflows and things that you can set up, but you can capture your RSVPs, you can track budgets, it can export reporting. It's absolutely amazing. We could do a session just on using Monday.com for a blank penny, but this is something super simple that I've actually been using since 2000 and 2008. And so it has with me from job to job. So it is my event POA. I start with this, and then usually by the end of it all, usually by the end of it all, it's complete. So, and you can get this if you, and I'll put that link back, I'll put the QR code back up as well if you need to grab it. But so it just starts off with programming events, a date, time, location. If it's outside, what's going to be the rain plan? That's big. If it's outside, if it rains, is it canceled? Are we moving it inside? Do we have a rain location secured? If we're doing things for students, so this is like for my student development type days, so learning outcomes, that type of thing. I used to classify events a lot, meetings, banquets, that type of thing, student learning opportunities. So that's what the classification is for. And funding. So I'm looking at, these are kind of just some of the things. This is not exhaustive, but here are some of the things. So artist and speaker fee, if we're having a paper travel, meal, itemized, like not just the, $20.95 per person cost, but if there's gonna be a cost for, let me get let me get out of that. So if there's gonna be a cost for dessert, like all of those things, any rentals we may have. So like for College-Tomball, we did like a gobo on the wall. So that was a rental. So it had like the Stars of Tomball logo. Any type and drape that you might need for your innovation summit, those types of things. If we are going to need a DJ, that's usually kind of like student event giveaways and prizes, awards, decorations. If we're having a speaker, we usually need to have some type of hospitality room for them to sit in. So are we gonna furnish that with something, or some other large event? When I worked at another institution, I used to plan concerts. So I used to have to do writers. I used to have to go through, artist writers and say, we're not buying that, but we'll buy this. And so hospitality rooms, so things like that, banners, giveaways, so just thinking of, it's not exhaustive, it just gets you thinking. And so one of the things that I attach, so I'm thinking about all the things that need to be connected to this event. And so this complete plan of action file, any research and samples that I have. So if I know, like, I have samples for the marketing that I want. I submitted my graphic artist request form. I know that it's gone to the campus calendar to get on the calendar for the calendar online. This is all confirmation for me that I did it too. So like I put it all in a file. So when people say that I didn't, it's all there. Anyway. And then, so did I request for it to be on the LSC display monitors? Any event layout? So of course, I've got to submit that when I am requesting my room, right? So I have a floor plan. So my layout, I want to have it attached into my file for this event. And then any volunteer or guest list I may have, I want all of that in there. So this is kind of how I used to call this the backwards plan, and then I started calling it a plan of action. So I used to have and so I used to kind of outline everything here. And so it would go back by like after the program, day of program, 1 week before, 2 weeks before, however, and then the date to be done and then who it's assigned to. And you can organize these in much better ways. Spreadsheet could work great. This is just kind of the template just to get you thinking about the things that you might need to consider. Yeah, no, it's perfect. Yeah, no, so it's completely shared. So what all do I have? Have I done all my TEAs? Do I need purchase orders? What, all the things. Is it a co-sponsorship? Did I make a request for it to be completed on social media? All of those things are kind of in here, if it's needed, if that's needed. And so I know that at Tomball, we like to request, well, in the college relations area, we like to request, 15 days, 2 weeks prior to your event for you to reserve your facility. And so here we go. So confirmations, marketing, any financial paperwork, we want to confirm our volunteers. We want to make sure it's being publicized. So we're following back up. If we submitted for it to be put on social media, has it been put on social media? You might need to follow up on that. And then kind of the day of kind of program here. This is from my old job, like picking up checks. We used to pick up checks and hand them to our speakers back in the day. So we don't do that anymore. Nobody should do that. Nobody should do that. You don't know how you feel when you're like have like a $50,000 check that's like from the institution to hand to some rapper. So yeah, it was ludicrous, but I think he was he might have been 70,000. I can't remember. But yeah, so this is kind of like a template. And so I still kind of go back and check through this, but I kind of also build some of this stuff into our Monday process that we're using, right? Because we're new, we're improved, we're digital, we're doing all kinds of new things and using the tools. Is worth the subscription. We enjoy it. My team just started implementing it this semester. Last semester, so that would have been spring. So yeah, so we got it in spring. Out off of which I don't think they use it for this, but we got it off the recommendation of the Marcom team because they use it for their internal project assignment and development. So they use it internally for them. And then we discovered the event management feature and it works really well. And there are free versions. So I don't know about all the stuff, but I do know that there are free versions because my outreach and comms coordinator did the free version for like a month first before we submitted because we had just bought a bunch of stuff and I was like, we can't just be buying all these subscriptions. But yeah, because then you can't keep up about when they start renewing. And anyway, yeah. All right, question. And I think somebody had a problem, and I'll double check everything and make sure all the links work. And I will put
No, I have somebody said it's not work related, but they are planning their daughter's quinceañera. So she's gonna use your template.
yes, yay. No, I love it. And I mean, I can also send her like my mom's super event template too. I'll steal it from her. I mean, I created it anyway. I'm kind of yeah. I will. I'll send you my mom's super event template. It's kind of intense, which is who I get it from. Actually, which is funny. My dad is the one that is like, we need a meeting, we need the checklist, where is the template? How do we know what? He gets on her nerves a lot, because he is just as like need things like super organized and yeah. So he's the one, but she does appreciate it because it just makes things so much better. And vendors appreciate when you are super organized and you're giving them a timeline of everything that's about to happen and when you're expecting them. And that happens even for the event that we plan here at the college. They do appreciate those. Any questions? Kendry's a master event planner as well. We have planned a lot of events together.
Yeah, we've done a lot of things together.
TEDx.
Oh my God.
Those are pretty big.
I forget that those are considered big events.
Oh my gosh, yeah, a TED event. Yeah, small scale, not really.
Okay, Gina has a question. What do you do when an event is canceled due to, say, an emergency?
Well, one, if you have any contracts, I hope that you have that legal. Well, usually what they attach allows you to reschedule. So if you have any speaker contracts or anything like that, but this is where you have to have really good relationships with your vendors because a lot of times when you are booking like caterers and things like that, you might not have those agreements in place. You could do a service provider agreement, but you probably don't. So you want to have really good relationships with them and talk to them about what their policies are when you're planning. Because, when I think about, and just going back, I think about the wedding season from COVID, all those weddings that had to be rescheduled, a lot of those vendors, which people didn't realize had, like acts of God clauses that said that, basically they only had to reimburse you or reschedule based on the kindness of their own heart. So it's really good to work with people that you have a relationship with. So that might have been why, we always used the patch back in the day, or one of the reasons why I really like working with Mills from the Tomball area, because I know that I can have a conversation and that they'll be amenable, right? And I know sometimes we're using new folks. Yeah, it's gone. We talked about the patch. We talked about not being considerate of, like doing something over and over and us not realizing that it was nothing but pork on the menu. So
So many pans.
just lots of pans, but so I would always if you do have any contracts, make sure you're reviewing them, making sure that you're looking at them as well. Even when legal just sends you something back. At a previous institution, we edited our own contract. No, that's not something people should do. But we were good at it. We got really good at it. So I still read them and still make sure I understand what's in the addendum that legal usually put with our contract. That's very Lone Star friendly. But when you're just purchasing something from somebody or you're renting tablecloths from somebody, you want to have those conversations with them to say, what's the last day that I cancel? If I do cancel, and I paid you in full, does it get to go on my next event? Can I reschedule? Those types of things. Because some vendors will tell you straight up, no. And then you get to decide if that's somebody you want to work with.
All right, well, thank you all so much for joining. Thank you, Donielle. Yay.
Thank you so much, everybody.